Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Magnetic Woman Show. As you can see, we are here with another incredible interview. I know how much you guys love this. And today I am with the one, the only, the incredible Kelly Mahalak, who is a leadership and cultural advisor. And I have been looking forward to this interview so much because before we started recording, Kelly and I have never officially met. However, we have known each other, known of each other, know each other's work for years. And she is so incredible. I swear, everything that you post, Kelly, I'm like, yes, yes. Are you in my journal? Are you in my mind? So, Kelly, why don't you tell everybody a little bit more about who you are and what does it mean to be a leadership and cultural advisor?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. First of
Sure.
all, I'm so excited to get to spend a little bit of time with you. And I think there's definitely a lot of crossover and things that we both have in common in the way we envision the world we're trying to create and build, right? Like our end goals are very similar in the way that we're not just trying to have success for ourselves, but we're really trying to create a movement that creates actual change and shifts in the world. And so it's really exciting to be here. And, throughout the years, I've had quite a few iterations of my business and things like that. For anybody who's like human design, I'm a Manny Gen. I'm just like a very fast moving kind of like creative ideas person. And I can tend to jump from thing to thing to thing. And, you know, there was a certain point where I realized that even though it felt like I was jumping around, I really wasn't. Like I was jumping around, but it was all within the same vein or idea of the same root thing. And
Yeah.
so once I was able to figure out what that root thing was, I was like, okay, maybe we should work with this. And then, because truly what my work centers on as a leadership and culture advisor is how business owners and founders and leaders within our community, right? And whether that means you're a leader because you're a teacher or you're on the PTA or you're a leader in your household as the mother who's raising children, right? We all have places in our lives where we are the leaders and where we are actively building and creating the culture in which we are living in that microcosm, in your office, in your business, in your home, in your community, in your school system, whatever. But I believe that change happens on a local and individual level.
Mm.
And so we each have to change individually, and then we can affect the culture of what we're the place where we have influence. And then those people shift and they go out and share in their zones of influence and everything. And that's how we grow. And so for me, I just saw this opportunity for particularly business owners and founders, small businesses to really create shifts by almost being like the Trojan horse of toxic capitalism, where it's like we
Love
get to
that.
redefine what being an employer looks like. How do we hire? How do we fire? What are our policies? How are we? What is the culture of our company or our business, particularly for personal brands, where it's you and your face out there. We're moving into a time where good marketing really isn't enough anymore. And people really want to know who you are, what you stand for. They don't want neutrality. And so most people don't really know how to take what they believe and what they really think is true and actually work that into the fabric and the structures of their businesses versus I know you believe it and you say it, but then the way you dealt with this conflict or rupture within an organization didn't necessarily match that. And so it is kind of the boring, sexy work of sometimes policies and procedures and things like that. But it really is all trying to bring us to a purpose so that that way we can affect change in small ways that then be, like a ripple effect affects change in large ways.
Yeah. And it's so important, right? Like it's so easy to sit on behind your computer on the sidelines in a lot of ways, or even active in your life and
Yeah.
point out all the things that are wrong with other businesses, all the things that are wrong with the patriarchy, with capitalism, with, how companies are structured. And it's a whole other thing to be like, okay, and I'm going to choose to operate in a completely different way
Hmm.
and trust and believe that that gets to work. It gets to be successful in
Yeah.
whatever that looks like, right? Because I think when we unhook from patriarchal culture, capitalistic society,
Mhm.
it there can be this like, well, one, I'm afraid it's not going to work for me, right? Because we're told that that's the only thing that works, even though clearly it doesn't. And two, along with like being afraid that it's not going to work, there can be this like, how do I bring all of it together in a way that feels authentic for me? Because
Yeah.
I think what we're seeing again and again and again, and of course I would love your thoughts on this, is if you've been in the online space, if you've been running a business, I think for more than like 4 or 5 years, you've gone through multiple iterations of yourself, your business, and you've seen different waves of things, right? So we saw like the boss babe era, which unfortunately I think is like vilified, not in a good way. Like I'm seeing this trend happen where it's like, don't be a boss babe. And I'm like, okay, so are we like demonizing women who are driven now because we're
It's
going a little too
sticky.
far, you know? Um, but this like over uh production
Yeah.
of burning out and reaching for things that were like seen as successful milestones that when a lot of women, myself included, would get to them, and you're like, wait, this doesn't feel how I thought it was going to feel.
Nope.
And actually my life is not what I want it to be, right? So this like authentic individualized success coupled with running, operating, leading in a way that is aligned to your morals and values and is the change, right? Like
Yeah.
that I think, and it's so needed right now. Like I think with the rise of AI, especially,
Mm,
people and especially women are so hungry for more of that. Grassroots isn't the word, but you know what I mean? Like that, like
yeah.
authentic, grounded, human to human contact.
Yeah. I mean, it really is so wild to me to watch over. I've been in online personal business for what's 2026, so about 10 over 10 years now.
Yep.
I would say, yeah, probably online in total. I think my first online business I started in 2012. So it's been about 14 years.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. And that in and of itself, even though it hasn't always gone the way, the fact that I've gone 14 years essentially without, like, with my business paying my bills, and I'm a single mom, so I'm the only income and everything like that, is does feel like a huge feat. And that
It is
and
a
that
huge feat.
it
Like,
is,
wait,
right?
let's pause right now. That is fucking incredible.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
And deserves to be celebrated. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think even something like that like no, it hasn't been perfect. And then there have been times where I've maybe had to like do some extra babysitting or something on the
Yeah.
side for my friends' kids to like make ends meet, especially in the earlier days, right? But the thing is that for me it was so important because I knew that I had to unhook myself from like the traditional capitalistic extractive work culture.
Oof.
And I think that Boss Babe kind of was a culture that came out of that, like wanting to unhook, because also Boss Babe culture comes with like the retire your husband kind
Yeah.
of stuff. And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you can work and raise your kids, right? Which is like a step in the right direction, right?
Definitely.
We love that women were like, actually, like, I don't just have to like go and get a job. I can do these more creative things. I can sell products online to
Yes.
my communities. I can, be a speaker. I can start my own business. I can sell my macrame on Etsy, like whatever it is, right? Like every woman has something that they could monetize if they wanted to. Not that everyone has to monetize everything you're good at.
Yes.
That's a whole other conversation, right? But I
Right.
think that Boss Babe was so important to that. But it still was like, it was like maybe like 30% feminism and then like
Yes.
70% still like kind of the same shtick. Because for me, I would see that and I would be like, yes, girl, go girl, like we're doing it. And then I would see that woman I was cheering on posting marketing from the hospital with a 2-hour old baby in her arms. And I would be like, this is not the
That's not it.
flex.
Yeah.
This is not it. And like, we like it's a step, but there's still so much more. And like, yeah, in an ideal world, I would be like, all companies are like, like the means of production are owned by the workers and like all of these
Totally.
things, right? Which I get that like that is a very far down the line. But I
Right.
think that there are, and particularly if you're someone who is in a place of leadership as a founder and owner, a C-suite, a manager, any type of leadership that has any control over policy, procedure, hiring, firing, discipline, anything like that. Marketing, even sales and marketing, right?
Oh my
It's
God.
just so important that like we know, especially for businesses that are centered on world change, that are centered around things like female empowerment, all of that, it can be really sticky when you're seeing someone who's maybe teaching about like nervous system regulation and being, like trauma informed, but then their marketing and practices use high pressure, lots of levers to get you to buy and things
Yeah.
like that. And it's like, and a lot of times people don't even consciously realize how those two things
Exactly.
are
Yeah.
not compatible. And
Yep.
so part of my job is by pointing those things out and saying, like, this is what you're saying and what you're preaching, but these places maybe are where your policies and the way you're actually operating the business aren't in line, which can be confusing for your buyers and for your audience when they're wanting to come work with you to help them with this thing, but like in order to get through that barrier, they have to suffer the same trauma that you're promising to help them with.
That is such a good point. And I think for so many of us, and it doesn't matter like if you're an entrepreneur, you're C-suite, you're a leader,
Yeah,
we can't see our blind spots. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And so many of us, I think especially if you are an entrepreneur, you decided to monetize a passion, a creative outlet, a skill set. It's like we decided to monetize those things or create something because of desire and not necessarily because we like were incredible marketers or because we like
right.
can see all of these things
Yeah.
about the business or our own leadership. And I think that especially for women in having been conditioned in the patriarchy, there is such a high bar of like perfectionism, like
Mhm.
internalized perfectionism. Like I just find women in general, we are so hard on ourselves, right? Like we
Mhm.
don't allow for a lot of mistakes or blind spots or um if you think about like how many women have financially invested in something and maybe it didn't pan out and then they whether it's shame or guilt or self-punishment, like hold themselves back from something else. And it's like, how
Yeah.
many men just continually invest, continually fail, and they're like, okay, let's do it again,
I mean, they've actually done studies and showed that like men's audacity and their ability to think higher of themselves than they actually are is part of what continues to move them forward in the world. Because I think it was, I don't remember the exact study, but it was something like they looked at the job application habits of men and women, like across the board. And men were applying for jobs that they sometimes only had 30% of the qualifications for,
Yeah,
where women wouldn't apply unless they had like 90% or more.
exactly.
And so like they would get the job sometimes just because they were willing to apply for something that didn't necessarily on paper feel like a good fit, where like women will be like, oh nope, that breaks the rules, not me, and move on because we just have like less audacity, and we're, which is conditioning, right? That we're like
Totally.
meant to think less of ourselves and all of that. But
No.
it's true that like, it's like a real proven
Well, and,
thing.
and so I think for a lot of women in leadership positions,
Hmm.
you we hold ourselves back leading from leading in the ways that we want because we're afraid of messing up, we're afraid of getting it
Yeah.
wrong, we're afraid of being judged or criticized.
Yeah.
And I just see it again and again and again, myself included, right? Where I'm like, wow, I really held myself back because I was so afraid of like being wrong or getting it wrong or messing up or, oh God, what if somebody comes in and looks through my business and they notice all of these things I'm not doing good enough in, right? And
Yeah.
there can be this self-policing
Hmm.
unnecessarily that holds us back from creating the change that we're here to create and that we want to create, right? On both the micro and macro levels.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And I think that we are just so conditioned in our culture to really go like all or nothing with things, right? Like there's kind of we've lost a lot of nuance, we've lost a lot of in between, we've lost a lot of like the journey. And we all just want to go from 0 to 100, lickety split. We
Yep.
all want to quantum leap into our success and like skip the falling down and scraping your knees and having to get back up. But like at the end of the day, like you need that resiliency. When we talk, a lot of people love the analogy of like the caterpillar and the butterfly,
Yeah.
right? And how like the caterpillar has to like basically dissolve itself, right?
Yep.
But one of my favorite pieces of that analogy is that if you cut the butterfly out of its chrysalis to try and like set it free, once you notice it wiggling, the butterfly will likely die. It will not be able to fly. And so the butterfly actually, while it's working itself and breaking that chrysalis open, it's building the strength in its wings that will allow it to fly.
Oh my God, that's such a good
And
analogy.
so if you try and cut it open to help it or give it a shortcut, you actually do detrimental damage to the butterfly.
Ooh,
And so you have to let it on its own time, in its own way, work its way through. And there's so much resiliency and so many lessons. And I'm not here to say like we all have to fail. We all have to fall flat on our
right.
face. It all has to be hard. It has to be like a journey that you get to success, because it definitely does not have to be like, but there are lessons. There are things that you'll have to go back and fix. There are things that you'll do and you'll say, you know what, I actually think I could do that better. Right. And that's, I think, sometimes what people think working with me is like, is they're afraid to bring me in sometimes because they don't want me to point out where they're maybe not in full congruence or where they could maybe do something better. But it's like, my job is to help you find the blind spots so you can actually be building and operating in what you really truly want, and not in like the closest part that like maybe you could really imagine or see or something, right? It's like, no, like we're here to make this better. It doesn't have to be like we're either going balls to the wall and we're posting about our business right after we've had babies and on vacation and on our honeymoon and like,
Yeah,
like all of the time. And like, if you want to post about being in the bathtub, like that's fine. But I hope that
totally.
there's times you're in the bathtub that you just enjoy the goddamn bathtub and that you don't feel like it has to be content for your internet, right? Like,
Oh my gosh.
and
Yeah.
like it is, it's like, yeah, like it's great. Like, yes, like document your life, post that stuff, use it for marketing, but can you balance that with also then knowing like, okay, now it's I took the pictures, we did the cheers, like, the boomerang. Now let's put the phones in the bags and let's be with each other. And
Definitely.
that's kind of like the whole principle across the board is like we get to have both. You get to have good marketing and it gets to actually be really truly trauma informed and it gets to feel relaxed and it gets to feel true to you, true to your business, in line with your ethos. You don't have to sacrifice your soul to the gods of capitalism so that you can have success. There is a way to market and sell and operate in congruency with your beliefs.
Oh my God, like louder for the people in the back that you don't have to sacrifice your soul to the gods of capitalism. And I think, I think especially when you're online, and this is something that I find so, true for myself, when you're online a lot because you're marketing online, you're
Yeah.
selling online, you're working online, your like perspective can become a little bit distorted, right? Because it's just like
Yes.
you're just like all online all the time. And, or not all the time, but a lot of the time. And so you're seeing everybody and their mother tell you, oh, this is out and this is in. And then the next people are like, no, that's out and this is it. It's like everybody has their own perspective, of course, because everybody's selling their own thing, of course. And so it does really drum up, I think, for a lot of women that like good girl tendency of like, okay, well, give me the rule book. I'll follow the rule book. I'll check the
Yeah.
boxes off. I'll study for the test. I'll pass the test. I'll get an A, and then I get to have what I want, right? And because we have been in this capitalistic society for so long, it's like, okay, give me the rules of capitalism. I'll follow the rules. I'll be the good little girl, and then capitalism will bless
Mhm.
me with all the things that I want. And I love the work that you do, and I love that you're helping so many women come into a sense of alignment with their morals, their values, their um, you know, authenticity, like what it is that they want for success, and doing it in a way where they're financially and across the board benefiting, and then that is amplified out into their world and into their communities because
Yeah.
the hill that I will die on is that the masculine was never the leader. It's always been the feminine. It's the
Yes.
feminine that leads. It's our feminine desire. It's our feminine vision that leads. And as we're seeing time and time again, especially right now in the current political climate, it's women that are demanding the change. It's women that are like, no, I refuse to operate in that way anymore. And I'm only willing to make money in a way that feels good for me and allows me the time and space to live how I want to live and to be the person I want to be. And I just think
Yeah.
like it's for all of the women watching, all of the women that follow you, that work with you, like it's so brave to go against what for hundreds, if not thousands of years we've been told is the only way,
Yeah.
and then the resiliency of the butterfly to do it again and again and again
Mhm. Yeah.
and again and again and again. And I just think like this is one of the reasons why I wanted to host the Embodied Feminine Leadership Revolution event because now more than ever in, end of February, beginning of March, when we're filming this 2026, more and more women are waking up to wanting to lead in ways that are authentic to them,
Yeah.
in ways that support them financially and their nervous system and their life and their lifestyle, and want to lead in ways that are really aligned with who they are morally.
Hmm.
Um, and it feels not taboo, but risky because we've been told the most
Yeah.
dangerous thing a woman can be is in her power.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm so grateful. And I know we all are. We're so grateful for the women who came before us in first wave and
Mhm.
second wave feminism,
Mhm.
who got us the right to vote, who got us the right to, divorce, to be in charge of our own reproductive
Oh,
health, to
getting
be in
chills.
charge of our
Yeah.
own financial well-being,
Yeah.
right? To be able to work if we want to work and not work if we don't want to work, or have a great career and take time off when we wanted and then come back, right? Like we have so many options, and I'm not like at all blind to the fact that like I stand on the shoulders of so many women,
100%.
particularly Black women, Indigenous women, women of color who came before us, who fought for these rights. But years ago, I came up with a concept called feminine activism.
I love that.
And when I envisioned it, I actually envisioned it on a coaching call during a meditation. And I saw it as the word feminist, like feminist activism, but crossed out the IST and an INE added instead.
Mhm.
Where it like second wave feminism was really about asking the world to allow us to stand on equal ground to men and to
Yep.
be able to have the same opportunities and the same choices.
Yes.
And with that came an adaptation to acquire some of the
Yeah.
hardness and some of the
Yep.
less favorable aspects of playing in a capitalistic patriarchy.
Yes. Yes.
And so, and that was a survival skill. And I'm so grateful that we developed those and that
Totally.
women passed those down and figured out how to find spaces at the table. But
Yes.
but when I was coming up with the concept of feminine activism, it was like, but what if we're no longer fighting to climb up the same ladder, or we're no longer fighting to sit at the same table and we decide it's time we build a new table?
Yeah. Burn the other table to the fucking ground first.
Right. I don't want to fight to sit at the boys' table. I want my own
No.
table full of matriarchs and
Yes.
priestesses and mystics and healers and old grandmothers, right? Like that's what I want. I want a council of women who are focusing on the collective, who are focusing on the future, who are centering life and legacy and sustainability for, our for ourselves, for our children, for our grandchildren, for the earth, right? For our land, for our resources. Because, I come from the belief that at the end of the day, like colonialist capitalism is kind of like at the bottom of everything because colonialist capitalism requires white supremacy, misogyny, misogynoir. It requires all of these things in order
Yeah.
to stay. So once we start deconstructing colonial capitalism,
Yes.
all of the other things, they all start to fall apart together, right?
Oh, such a
And
good.
so when we start thinking about the way we're operating within a system that is built on extraction and is built on profit and is built on like maximum like shareholder profit basically versus any humanity or we're and now with AI we are seeing very quickly that not only are we burning out the humans on this earth who by the way are the means of production and so
Right.
like
Right.
we're like literal machines that are breaking down in burnout. We have an entire Gen A of kids who are like, I don't even want to work and participate in this corporate system because I can already see it's a trap.
Exactly.
Right. We have our natural resources are all being rapidly used up. And like we are at a point in history where we can see, we can see the edge of the cliff and the train is chugging very, very quickly towards the edge of that cliff. And now we can see it. It's not like a hypothetical anymore.
Right.
We're like, oh, there it is. It's not that far off now. And so something has to change and we have to, and we all have to find our own place in that. And for
Yeah.
me, based on my skill sets, my desires, my areas of expertise, right? I was like, we have and my connections, my community is essentially a lot of business owners. It's a
Yeah.
lot of personal brands, a lot of founders and things like that. And so like you are my people. And so this is where we will start this work that's like, how do we become modern day priestesses, modern day matriarchs? How do we start paying people, giving people time off? Are we running businesses where like, I texted one of my clients who that is a social media client of
Yeah.
mine. And so like in a way she's like my boss even though like
Right.
it's not like that.
Yeah.
But I texted her the other day and I was like, sorry, I'm like a little bit behind on something. Like I am just like I'm feeling really overwhelmed by everything right now. And she's like, our company, she named her company and she said has mandatory scream time off. Like,
I love that.
and
I
I was just like, sorry, I can't. I went on like a whole like rant and then I was like, sorry, I like obviously needed to get that out.
that is
And she was like, no, like I get it. And so like having things like mental health and time ample time off for things, right? Not asking your employees to give you a doctor's note to prove that they needed the day off. Like
Right.
there's like such little simple things that just are so unnecessary that really just rob working of its humanity. And like we
Yes.
shouldn't have to not be human for the majority of our lives so that we can earn our ability to
To
live,
yeah. Yes.
and so like yeah, if you own a business or you're in any type of leadership, even the dance studio my kids go to, like there's board members for our fundraising and there's owners and teachers and stuff,
Yeah.
and I could even see the way kind of maybe like what's said and how it actually goes are not exactly the same. What we
Yep.
say the values are and how they actually play out aren't always, it's literally everywhere if you start to
Look.
look.
Yeah.
And it's just an opportunity for all of us to check in with ourselves and say, like, am I really walking out? Because if we want to see a different world, we are going to have to start acting and doing things different.
100%.
It
100.
doesn't just get built in concept, it gets built in action and embodiment. And so, like, you have to be the one to start walking it out first and then teaching your people, your kids, your peers, your clients, your coworkers, your, subordinates, your partners, things like that. If you ever meet somebody, like if you ever meet a man who's like staunchly feminist and really gets it, guess what? He wasn't born that way. He had a mother or a lover or a
Yeah.
sister or a friend or somebody
For all of
who
them.
taught, right, or all of them, because it takes a village, right? Like he had women in his life that taught him that. And so
Oh,
we just need to be shown sometimes where
yeah.
the world kind of like subconsciously pulls us out of congruence, and
Yeah.
how do we just like go, oh, great, like there's an
Right.
area I can fix. Let's do it.
Right. And I always say, like, the path of the feminine is the forgetting and remembering. Like,
Mm,
and it's the, forgetting our divinity and coming back to it. It's
yeah.
forgetting, what we know to be true to our core and coming back to it. It is the reclamation of our humanity as the whole point, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
I'll never forget, my dad passed away when I was in my mid 20s, and
Mhm.
when he had passed away, there was a woman that I worked with at the time whose mother had passed away. And so, and she was a little bit older than me, but I went to her and I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, like what the hell? And she told me that, she was like, grief is going to take however long it's going to take. And like, it's not
Uh,
predictable, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, that was really hard in her marriage. She goes,
mm,
because she was sad, of course, that her mom had passed away and was grieving, a few weeks after the funeral. And her husband was like, aren't you like over it? Like, you only get 3 days off to grieve. Like,
yeah.
and mind you, I'm sure at the like this isn't a critique of him or that or anything, but it's like that mentality of like, oh, companies or what's allowed is like,
Yeah.
okay, 3 days to grieve. And it's like, that's not humane. Like, that's not human to be like, okay, 3 days
No.
off and then get back to work and like go
Yeah, and
at
like
it.
in opposition, my mom passed a couple of years ago, and during like her hospitalization and like the pass and everything, I think I had 3 weeks where I was just basically like, bleh,
Yeah,
like I got nothing.
yeah.
And then even after that, like I was given so much grace for like how much time, what I was able to come back if I needed extra time. People were like, whatever. And I eventually had the ability to kind of even shift what I was doing a little bit
Yeah.
to allow my emotional body more space and do a little bit more work in my mental body and in my more
Yeah.
conceptual stuff versus like deep emotional work,
Yep.
so that way I could tend to my own emotions instead of holding
Totally.
other people's, while I
Totally.
did more, while my work stayed a little bit more cerebral. And so like yeah, even having a an opportunity within my work and within the people I worked with where I got all of the time and grace that I needed. Everyone was understanding, and people were willing to work with me to help me shift into what I needed. Um, was amazing. And I my mom passed away in January of 2024. It is now February of 2026, and I'm just now like, okay, I'm ready to be back,
Yeah.
you know? And so it's like, yeah, 3 days is insane.
Insane. Well, and I just kind of want to like loop back in here before we start to wrap up a little bit, but
Yeah.
in talking about, you know, capitalistic culture and society and this idea, I heard once like, oh, when women are in leadership roles, companies are like less not productive, less profitable over time, right? And I'm like, is that all we're well, one, where's that statistic from? I don't know. But two, it's like, is that all we're measuring is like profit quarter after quarter after quarter? Like, are their employees happier? Is like the retention of the company better? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's so many other things. And I think that again, so many women and so many women leaders are waking up to this being like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, and then going back to the boss babe framework, it's like, wait, why am I trying to climb the boys ladder? Like, first of all, it smells and it's dirty. Like nobody has cleaned it in 2000 years, right? Like why are we not sitting at a table? And I heard of a company, now I can't remember what it is, where it's like mandatory maternity leave
Yeah.
months long maternity leave and mandatory at the end of the year, everybody has 2 weeks off, and it's like
Yeah.
building things in. And it's like, maybe, and I don't know specifically for that company, where it's like maybe they're quote unquote less profitable in terms of revenue and percentage and this and that. But it's like, how happy are the people that are like, what is the
Yeah.
point of what we're doing, right? Like you said, making money for shareholders, or is it to like create something different?
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing is that when we're talking about profit in small business, it's a very different conversation than when we're talking about corporate
Totally.
profit, right? Because
Totally.
obviously making a profit for a small business is necessary because even above, like everybody's payroll and overhead and everything, having a profit so that you have something to get you through in case you have a slow season or
Right.
something happens, right? Like having that kind of like pad is really great. But when we talk about corporate profits, which is what these studies are done on,
Yeah.
right? The profits, yes, the profit margin might be less, but that just means because they're actually utilizing the cash flow available to them to
Yeah.
help make the company run better, to keep employees happier, which is going to keep them with the company longer, which is
Yeah.
overall going to benefit the company.
Right.
But what it's not going to benefit are the old white men who are
Yes.
sitting back collecting checks for doing nothing. And so, like,
Exactly.
if we're worried about the old white men collecting checks, then, like, yeah, having lower profits might be a problem. But if we're talking about not paying our workers and you're worried about profits, then profit becomes theft at a certain point.
Oh my
And
God.
so, like,
Point.
yeah, so it's really, and that's also sometimes where in small businesses we get confused is that we follow a lot of corporate things. We follow a lot of
Oh,
corporate
such a good
rules, and you're talking about multi-billion-dollar businesses
Yeah.
versus like you and your virtual assistant, and
Right.
you cannot borrow from them and their processes when it's just like you and a couple of other people.
Oh my God. Yes. Yes, yes, yes to all of that. So good. So if you've enjoyed this conversation, then you are definitely going to want to sign up for the Embodied Feminine Leadership Revolution event, which is happening March 20th through 27th. And Kelly is one of the incredible experts that will be there. And it is just going to be so amazing because, again, I think now more than ever, these conversations that Kelly and I are having that we would have, in the DMs, it's important that we are having them on a larger global scale and that we're cultivating and creating community, sisterhood of other women who are locked into this as well. Because again, I think it can feel overwhelming, it can feel scary, it can feel like either I'm the lone drunk person and everybody's sober, I'm the only sober person and everybody's drunk, but either way, I feel like I'm on my own island, And it's vital for us to be in community with other women so that we can not only talk through what we're coming up against and the challenges that we might be having, but let's not forget it's about pleasure and fun and being in community with women who like get it, support that, want to cheer you on, want to see you have
Yeah.
your desires. So the event's completely free. Make sure to check out the link below. And Kelly, as we begin to wrap up here, is there anything left coming up for you, bubbling up on your heart that you want to share?
Oh, wow. I mean, sign up.
Yeah, seriously.
Sign up and come.
Come on.
Come listen. I am fully, I know all the behind the scenes and all of the people who are participating, and it is a stacked cast, you guys.
Oh, good.
Like there's not one video that I am not looking forward to.
Same. I'm like, I think
It's
I'm just doing this for myself, honestly. Like, it's
right.
so
But
good.
the thing is, and like, this is just such an example of having been doing this for so long. And particularly, I shifted in my own work, moving into more community in 2020 when we lost a lot of the in person community. I leaned into a lot of online industry community, right? Things like that. And it is the women and the deep conversations we have, yes, but also the times where we all gather around a dinner and wear lingerie and scream and like, right? Or like the times we like get together and skinny dip in the ocean, like the moments where we are in pleasure, eating great food and having, like wonderful company. Like, I
Yeah.
could sit and do this all day and you call this work and I'm like, me and Lauren are just going to sit here for another 5 hours talking.
100%.
Like this is how the world changes, by opening up to new thoughts, new ideas, finding your people who aren't just going to sit and tell you all the ways we can make things better, but actually be better together fully. And that's like be better. And yes, the way we're running our businesses or the way we're building new economies, new, political systems, things like that. But also like we're better because we're happier, because we're more in pleasure, because we have tools that we can lean into, with the community being a major tool. If we want to see, I know a lot of people probably are going to be talking about like matriarchy and things like that. And if we want to see that vision come to life, we can't do it all in our own little suburban houses, like set up on the block.
Exactly.
Like we have to do it together. And so, particularly for women who are maybe feeling like they don't have that, this might be an opportunity to find some new women that you're like, oh, that's the community I want to plug into because they're my community and they're great.
Exactly. Exactly. And again, I think it's always just like such a great reminder to have to be surrounded by other women and to have their reflection back to you, right? Because it can be so easy, again, at home by yourself in your own little isolated silo of like, well, I think these things are great, or I think this idea or concept is like groundbreaking, but like, I don't know, let me throw it into the ethers of the internet and like nobody responds. But being
15 years later, my parents are still like sending me like job applications and they're like, I saw this and thought of you. And I'm like, I haven't worked a regular job since like 2011. Like, what
that's
are you doing? They're like, oh, you're like, how's your little business going? And I'm like, oh, my little business that's been at six figures for like a
right.
decade.
You're
Like,
like,
no big
it's just
deal.
creating seismic changes
Right.
across the
And it's
globe.
like, yeah, you sometimes can feel crazy in your real life because not necessarily like your family, your childhood friends, like
Yeah.
it. And
Right.
it's so important. I think I would have probably, I'd be in a mental institution right now if I hadn't find my online people, because like a lot of my real life people are just like on, I love them all. They're my humans, but like we're just on completely different planes sometimes.
Yeah, and so this is a space like this event even if you are watching this and it's after the event or you're choosing not to sign up, whatever, go follow Kelly, right? Like follow the women who are in these interviews because even then just plugging into her world, her containers, working with her or anybody else that comes through on these interviews is gonna help you fill your cup up. And it's like now more than ever, yes, it's like protect your peace, protect your energy, but make sure that you're filling your cup up with like fun and pleasure and women who light you up and women who are setting the world on fire because there's so much. I mean, there's always so much, but especially right now, there is so much that is heavy and hard and heartbreaking and awful going on where it's very easy. And I have no doubt that if you're here and watching this, you're sensitive, you're empathic, you're
Yeah.
spiritual, and it can be really easy to get kind of swept up in it. in a way that is not supportive for you and the work that you're here to do. So let this
Yeah.
event be that pattern interrupt for you. Go follow Kelly, please, because her stuff is always so good. Like I said, every time she comes up, I'm like, yes, yes, you're in my brain, in my journal. And any final words, Kelly, before we close out?
Just remember that joy and pleasure are part of the resistance. They're what will sustain
Yes.
you. So
Yes.
as hard as it gets, make sure, like, yeah, stay informed, stay tuned in, don't miss a thing, but also remember sometimes shut the screens off, get off the internet, go to coffee with a friend, get in bed, and like do things that was what will get us through this.
Yes. Oh my God, amazing. Kelly, thank you so, so much for being here. Everybody who has tuned in, thank you so much for watching or listening, and we will see you next time. Have a good one.